All right, thank you guys for coming to our week 13, trying to jump the gun here, week 12 meeting. Um, and I wanted to show this picture first. These are two images of the same shot of the Maldives. Um, the left picture is from 1997, and I lied, I got those backwards. The left picture is from 2020 and the right picture is from 1997, um, which I found kind of interesting, and I actually captioned it the way I initially would have thought. Um, on the right, it's much more, there's not a lot of island left, but on the left, there's quite a lot more populated area, which doesn't make a ton of sense to me, um, because the Maldives is a less than a meter, I think they said, um, above sea level. Um, so they are at a very high risk of um, being completely underwater in by 2050. There's a pretty large chance of that happening. Um, so they are working to build artificial islands. Um, so some of what they've done, so I'm trying to see on this map here. This right island is an artificial island. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. But they are doing this by digging up sand from the seafloor, and pumping it up to reconstruct these islands, basically just make them taller. Um, so now their newly constructed island is about 2 meters above the sea level. Um, I thought that was interesting because it's not definitely not a permanent solution, um, but it has significantly helped them from being literally completely their islands from being erased. Um, I thought it was really interesting. They were saying that um, even if we curb greenhouse gas emissions now, they could still see the islands completely submerged. Um, Interesting thing with climate change is that there is kind of a delayed effect to it. So a lot of the issues we're seeing now were actually caused, I don't know if they know for sure, I would say about 30 years ago. We're seeing those effects now. So even when we curb greenhouse gas emissions to a sustainable level, we might still see the effects go on for a bit. That kind of delayed gratification, I guess. But I thought this was kind of interesting how they are solving this problem. And they also mentioned in this article um, that they were working to purchase land from other countries because this is obviously not a permanent viable solution. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting. If anyone wants, I can post the link to that. They had like a slider to show the difference in the islands from 1997 and 2020. It was kind of crazy. Um, so a couple things I want to talk about. We have some events coming up. So first one is this Saturday. We're going to meet at the community garden at 11. We have a couple things to do. I don't have a picture of what it looks like now, but these pictures are from 2016 when the greenhouse was first built. Looks a bit different now. Our door is in pieces, so we need to construct and attach a new door. The inside is completely full of leaves, so we're gonna have to do some clearing out. And then we want to plant some things. And I don't know if it'll be this weekend, but we do need to install a new thermometer because the one in there is not working correctly. So yeah. Next thing is that this Friday, RIT Sustainability and Net Impact are pairing to, I believe they're doing actually every Friday in Earth Month in April. They are going to be showing a sustainability movie. This is a documentary that talks about social entrepreneurship and sustainability economics, and the triple bottom line that businesses are really striving for. It seems like a really interesting film. So that will be Friday in Wegmans Theater, which is in the Magic Center, at 6 p.m. And I don't think I put a slide for it, but I did want to mention now, I believe it is the evening before the next Thursday is the recharge day. So I believe Wednesday night will be an event that the RIT Sustainability Committee is putting on, called Lights Out. It's basically an attempt to get everyone in dorms to shut their lights out for an hour. Earth Hour is a different thing. That's actually in late March, but we wanted to do this for Earth Day. I believe it will be either 7 to 8 or 8 to 9 will be that Earth Hour. And they're actually going to be monitoring the how much energy is being used by dorms around that time, so we can see the actual quantity of power saved. But yeah, and I believe there's also going to be something happening out on the Greek lawn at that time. So just so you guys are aware of that. I will have more information on that next week. This is same as last time. Store is still open. We have shirts, we have mugs. I wanted to mention this again because it's going to close in the next couple of weeks. So get stuff now before the summer. And it'll be open again in the future though, next semester. That's all I had. Any questions about that stuff? Kind of went through that fast. All right. Then James, you are good to go. Do you want, I can give you screen sharing. So
yes, that'd be fantastic.
Okay.
Let's see. All right, great. I've got my camera over here. I've got my screen over here, so bear with me if I'm not looking at you while I talk. But first off, just a little bit about me. My name is James Sheeler. I'm a fourth-year industrial design major. This club, actually, just what you showed was really cool, just because our major is revolving around making products and everything, and sustainability is definitely something we always consider with our products. So definitely cool that there's a club for this on campus. And so I'm a Fusion 360 student ambassador. So pretty much feel free to reach out anytime for any Fusion related questions. Also in the student call, I invited Seraphim Weber. He is an engineer as well, and he's another Fusion 360 ambassador. So if you ever want to reach out to us to ask any questions, if something wasn't clear today, or you're working on a project of your own that you'd like a little help, if you can't figure something out, that's our job. That's what we're here for on campus. You can either get us at one of our emails, which we can share at the end, or reach out to us on Fusion 360 at RIT on Instagram. And if you're interested in any events that we have coming up, we generally post there as well. So yes, what I have for you today is a speaker, a little bit of a portable speaker here. And this will give you a good overview of what to expect within Fusion. We will cover a variety of different things going on here. But to jump into Fusion, the best way to, I don't know how many people here have done SolidWorks or Rhino, or if you've never touched CAD as well, that's completely fine. But one of the ways I like to look at it is once you've learned one CAD software, it's like learning another language. While sure, there may be some differences, you may be able to connect the dots where some things maybe overlap and be familiar of what you've seen before. The way Fusion is set up is that it's very user-friendly in the sense that when you're welcome to the program, you have a setup that will be welcoming you to tools that you'll be using most frequently. At the top, we have our solid modeling tools where create sketches, extrudes. We'll cover all of that in a quick second. Over here are where all your components are, where you will be able to model different aspects of the speaker itself. We have that over here. At the bottom, we have a timeline. So if you do want to go back and edit something, if you want to go see what stage you were a few minutes ago, you can go back in time and visualize how it all comes together. And so we can also click progressively through here to see what we'll be working on here today. As it comes together. Then over in the top right, we'll have a viewfinder cube, which you can drag around, or you can also click Shift and the mouse wheel and drag your model around. And if you want to select the front face, you can select the front of the cube. If you want to select the top, you can do that as well. Just to kind of gauge with who I'm working with, do we have people that are following along or just sort of watching today?
I think just watching for the most part.
Okay. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and take progressive breaks, just stop, let people catch up. Otherwise, I'll just be going along with it. Sweet. So we're going to first off start with creating a new document or a new file. So we'll hit the new design up here. We can also go File, New Design. And we are going to name this Fusion event and Fusion demo. Today is the 13th. And hit save. And when we go in here, one of the great things about Fusion is that it's a cloud-based software, so that when you save something, it'll save it to the rest of the cloud. So if you do end up logging in your computer at home or if one at school, you can transfer your files. But the other benefit of this is that teams can work together on files together, sort of like a Google Docs where everyone can just add in different paragraphs in different areas. So that's another part of Fusion that is worth exploring if you have the opportunity. So we'll go ahead and save it in our project, our file, and save. Now we have our file ready to go. The first thing that we're going to do is we are going to create a new component. And this will create an assembly. And that is our parent component. And there's three kind of breakdowns of parts within Fusion 360. You have your assembly, which is the very top, at the very top, which is your whole model. All your parts are combined together as one object. So if we turn that off, that's what we turn off. The next step down is components, which are the modeling parts that you can combine and put together. And then the last one is bodies, which are sort of the blobs and parts that go together that create a component. So let's say you had a cylinder and a sphere. Rather than those being two separate entities, a component is able to take those two bodies and put it together into one part. So that's what we have going on here, where we have a sphere and a cylinder, and those have been combined into this component. Same goes for this main body here, that's orange, where we subtracted from it, where we have both fillets and chamfers on it, and that's how we get our next component. And if something isn't clear, feel free to always write in the chat or stop me. It's better to clear something up while on the move, or something doesn't become clear later on the line. Be happy to do that as well. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to create a sketch. And we're going to go to the top left or hit S. And what we see now is 3 different planes that we can work on. So what we're going to want to do is we are going to select the front plane. And we are going to go up to the top again and make a rectangle. Now we could click it anywhere, but what we want to do is when we create objects, we want to have them locked down in place. So I'm going to select the origin so it doesn't want to move on me. I'm going to zoom out a little and go big. So now you'll see, maybe for those who have done SolidWorks, something similar where the lines that are black are ones that are constrained, they don't want to move. And then the lines that are blue are the lines that do want to move. And when we're creating objects, we want to try to constrain this object as its entirety. So we want to go ahead and add some dimensions to it. But before we do that, we want to make sure what kind of unit we're in. Today we'll be working in inches, but if you did want to go into a different kind of unit, we can also switch it over to centimeters, millimeters. It might be preset as millimeter, but we're going to want an inch today. We'll hit OK on that. right? I think it's because I'm in inches that it's doing that. All right, cool. All right, so the next thing that we're going to want to do is put some constraints on this. So we can go up to where we have our rectangle up there and go to the end one, which is our sketch dimension tool. Also hit D as a keyboard shortcut. Now what I want to do for this is I'm going to have this as 6 inches high. And then for width, I'm going to set it as 18 inches. And once I'm done with this, you can see that everything is constrained. I'm going to hit Finish Sketch. So now we have our 2D plane. We can either mouse, wheel, and shift to drag around, or we can use the cube to see that we are in a 3-dimension space right now. And we'll go ahead and drag this out a little bit to add some dimension to it. I'm going to make it 6 inches in depth. And I will hit Enter. You can see that we have made a cube. Now I'm looking at the proportions of this, and I'm not entirely sure that I like what I've created so far. So the reason I'm bringing this up is that when we have something like this that we want to tweak later on, we're able to go back within our timeline on the bottom and we can edit it. So if I go and right click and edit sketch, let's say I want to have this as 16 inches instead, very easily updates, and you can see that now our rectangle is 16 inches as well. Cool. So the next thing I'm going to do is add some fillets on the edges of this. And I am going to select the fillet, which is above modify. And I'm going to select each of these outside edges. And we can either type in a dimension over here, or we can eyeball it and drag it to the size that we like. And I'm going to have it as 1.5 inches. Enter. We have some less sharp angles on it. And now to introduce another command, you can see that when we begin to enter the drop-down menus, there's a lot more to Fusion than just what reached the eye when we first began Fusion. And we have all these variety of options. And what we're going to want to do is add a chamfer onto the front and on the back edge. Again, just like the fillet. That's a little too much, but we are going to make it 1/2 inch instead. And you can either type in decimals, or you can actually have the program do math inside it. So you can either do fractions or decimals. There we go. How's everyone doing? Is this making sense? Am I going too fast? Do I need to slow down? Sweet. Cool. So the next thing we're going to do is when we take a look at what we're trying to achieve, I am going to add the volume buttons on top. Now, to add that, I'm going to add a sketch. Just like we did before with that back rectangle, we can select a face. We can either do it even do this on the chamfer face. We can add some volume buttons that are maybe more pointed at you, but we're going to do it at the top. And you can see that the grid is positioning right where I want to put it. And we are on top. Now I could draw out a plus and a minus, but for the sake of this exercise, I'm going to introduce you to how to add text onto your speaker. Before I jump into text, it's important that we anchor it down. So I'm going to add a center point. Now, putting down lines, I don't want the lines that we had previously. I want to have construction lines to help me position that aren't going to show up on the actual item. So the way I do that is we also have this menu over here with the sketch palette. And what we want to do is we want to change the line type to construction. So what we have here is you can see that now I'm drawing a dotted line, and I can hover over. Do I want it in top corner? It'll blue rectangle, and if I'm aiming for midpoint and perpendicular, it'll make those symbols as shown there. And I'm going to do from the top to bottom as well. So I know that this is the midpoint, and I'll hit escape to get out of that command. Now to add the fun part, the text. And I'm going to draw my text box in here. Zoom window. And for my alignment, I'm going to do center and align to middle. Let's see. For the text box, I'm actually just going to, well, I could do, I'm going to do plus or minus. You can see how Arial, let's see, height, I'm going to make it an inch. There's a lot to play around in here if you want different fonts. Accidentally clicked out of it, so I'm just going to jump back in that menu by double clicking it. Now, I'm not sure I want Arial as my font, maybe something a little more dramatic, so we'll go for something like that. And an inch is still not quite what I want. Keep going a little larger. And you can see that we can drag around our text box, and I want this point to be anchored there. We'll hit Finish Sketch. And we have our sketch plane on top. Now, still 2D, and we're going to go ahead and extrude our text that we have there. So I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch. And we can either have it joined to this, which will be our main component. But I'm actually going to make it a new component so that when we go in later to add some color to it, it won't turn orange with the rest of the body. These will give the representation that these are separate buttons. So I'm not going to do a new body. I'm going to do a new component, and we're going to hit OK. Now, it made a component inside of this assembly. So it's made these 3 objects and assembly here. But what we want is we're going to drag this component back to Fusion Demo. And so now that you can see that we have this component and this component underneath this assembly. Now, another thing to keep in mind is now that we have multiple components, it's important to be working on the one that you have active. And to have it active, you select the little dot that is next to it. So you can see that if we're going to be working on the volume buttons, we'll have this selected. If we're going to be working on the whole thing, have it all selected. Of course, we can always rename these. And base. Perfect. So now I'm going to go back to make the base layer active so that we know that I'm working on this one. Another thing to keep note is that when you do select a different component, your timeline responds to that component rather than everything you've worked on. So it makes things a little easier once you have a lot of components, a lot of things going on, and it combines everything. If you just want to work on one part, it's easy to go back and switch it to there. Cool. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a shell, which will allow me to put all the inside components in there so there's room to have the internals. Actually, I'm just kidding. I jumped a little ahead. We're going to do that after this next step. Sorry about that. We're actually going to create where the audio comes out. Create a sketch on the front plane. And we are going to create 3 circles. One for the base. These 2 smaller guys. And you can see that these are just floating around. I don't want these floating around. And we can actually reduce our workflow by introducing another lesson. So I'm going to delete this if it wants to. So the way I also do that is I'm able to left click on an object, and instead of constantly going up to the top bar, it gives you another menu that makes it easier to, it tries to guess what you're doing. Maybe it's the command you've just done, which was like delete, repeat delete, or if you want to press pull this. So that's another way to save time if you're looking for small hacks to make your life easier. So the first thing I'm going to do is center the circle, and I'm going to create a construction line. So I'm going to go to the top, try to find that midpoint. There it is, the triangle, and snap it to the bottom. Able to drag this around, but that's not what I want, so I'm going to drag it to the center point. Now we have this column up here, which are all of our constraints. So if I'm looking for something to be tangent, coincident, for example, or a midpoint, midpoint is actually the one I'm after. So I'm going to select the center point of this and the midpoint and the center line here. It's going to find the midpoint of those 2 parts and automatically snap it to the center. So now that all is up to me, is I am going to decide the size of the circle. So I'm going to select the circle, but I'm actually not just going to type in a dimension for the circle. I actually decide whatever constraint I want later on. Come on. Sorry. Just going to make the circle 5 inches. Too big. 4.5. Cool. The next part, I'm going to add this. I'm going to anchor down this speaker, which I'm going to first create a dimension from the center point here to here. And I'm going to make it 2.5 inches. And from the top, same thing, 2.5 inches. Now for the size of the circle, 2.5 inches. Why not? Now I could go ahead and redraw this, do 3 dimensions on this side, but I don't really want to do that. The easy way to do it is that I can use the mirror command to mirror this circle. And the way I'm going to do that is click on the circle. Fusion generally guides you through what it's asking for you through dialog boxes that pop up. So first, I'm going to select the object and the mirror line, which works out great because we already drew that out. And you can see that it immediately draws it over to the other side. Now, one of the benefits to this is that if I do want to just change the circle to 3 inches, it automatically updates on the other side as well. That looks pretty good. So we will finish sketch. And now we have to extrude it. And while we created a object last time, what we're going to do this time is subtract. And we are going to go back 1 inch. We're going to hit OK. Sweet. Now, what I jumped a little ahead to last time was I wanted to shell the back for all the components. So again, on the modify tools, I'm going to go to shell, select the face we want. This is actually kind of fun. I'm going to type in 1/8 of an inch. And what it's done is that it's taken the shell of the inside, including the speakers that we have here, and we will now be able to put some inside guts into it. Hit OK. Any questions up to this point? If not, keep going. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is create the speakers that we have inside here. And what we want to do is we want to create a new component. So we're going to make this part active of everything that we're working on. Assemble, new component. That's the back one. So we are going to hit OK. And we have a new component that is able to be edited or begin on its journey. So I am going to create this as center, which will be where we create this back panel or the center speaker. So we have this active. You can see that we have this ghost of speaker in the background, and we are going to begin by creating a sketch on the speaker plane. And we are going to actually, sorry. One helpful thing if you have something on another component and you want to bring it to this one, you can hit P, which is the project command. So that makes this outer circle now onto this plane. So I can have and work on this circle as well. So that's all I need there. I'm going to hit finish sketch and extrude. Now, I've kind of been avoiding everything else in this menu, but this is where it's helpful to start looking out what else Fusion has to offer within this command block. Instead of entering 1 inch, which is what we know, how deep we went back, what if we change the circle in the future to 1.5 inches? We want this to automatically update too. So what we can do this instead is under extent type, we can go to object. And so this asks us what object do we want to go to. And we're able to extend all the way to the front plane. And we'll hit OK. So now you can see that no dimensions were added in. It was just a matter of making sure that this face is flush with this face. Now we're going to create another sketch. And using what we just learned, we're going to use the project by hitting P. We'll hit OK. So now we have this purple line, which is the circle that we have behind there. And introducing a new item that we haven't gone over yet is the offset command. And as above modify, we're going to select this circle. And we just want it to go in a little bit. I'm going to say 1/4 of an inch. But you can see it went the wrong way there. So the way to fix that is you can either do -1/4, or you can just flip it and it goes inside. We'll hit OK. Now, the reason we did that is so that we can create some depth within this inside of the speaker, so that we can use the modeling tool, the chamfer, to create this kind of shape that we have going on, to give the representation of, hey, this is a speaker. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish sketch, and I'm going to extrude again. Now this time I'm going to cut in. Now just like last time where I didn't add a dimension, I'm going to do that again. But instead of, I'm actually going to turn off my base. It's going to be a little in the way. And the volume buttons, I only need this. I could cut all the way through, but I actually want to keep the back of this as well. So what I'm going to do is another to object. I'm going to select this face, but it cuts all the way through. So what I want is another offset of the cutting of the through. I have it go through up to 1/4. No, -1/4. Didn't like the fraction there, but come on. -0.25. So you can see that it doesn't cut all the way through. But again, if I were to make it 1.5 inches larger in the back, this would always remain a 1/4 inch thickness in the back here. So hit OK. Almost there. Now what we're going to add in is a chamfer, sort of like what we did earlier. But we're going to add a little more detail onto this one instead. I want to chamfer this inside edge, and we can see, we can drag it out, but it's keeping it the same on both sides, and that's because equal distant is set over here. So I'm going to change it to 2 distance instead. So now I have 2 arrows. I was able to drag this one here, this one here. And since we're going to add a sphere in the center here, just kind of eyeball it and say that looks pretty good as is. Great. Now I'm going to go to create. And I don't know if I've dropped down this menu, but we also can create boxes, cylinders, spheres. We want the sphere, so we're going to select that. Center of this circle is where it's going to create the sketch plane and the sphere. Let's decide the size. It wants to cut it for us, but we want to create a new body. Have it kind of small so it doesn't clip through the back. Nah, it's clipping. And we actually, yeah, let's make it 0.7. And so that you can see that it fills that gap. It does clip through the back, but we'll fix that in a second. We'll hit OK. Cool. Almost there. We are now going to split this body so we can separate that little nub from the rest of this. Split body, bodies to split. This one here, splitting tools, it's going to be this here. Hit OK. So now you can see, did not do it. Let's check out our bodies. There we are. So when I split it, it changed the sphere from one body into two bodies, and we can view that over here. What I'm going to do is remove this body, so that we no longer have to see it. And now that we have these two bodies that are combined, nope. Let's see, there we go. And we have our speaker there. So what I could do is I could go ahead and walk through the steps again to make another one here, and then I would mirror the other side. And I can go ahead and do that. But I was curious, up to this point, this is sort of the demo. If there's anything in particular that you would like to learn about Fusion, I would be happy to talk more about it. Or I can keep going along with the demo. It's up to you guys. Don't know if there's something that you did want to see out of today in particular or see again.
I personally don't have anything in particular.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just keep going along with it and repeat the steps that we did over here and see if there's anything different I can learn here or share in here. So just like we did before, we're going to go back to the make everything active. It's coming along. And just for the fun of it, I'm going to just go back to the very start and adjust our initial sketch. Make this 8 inches instead. So you can see how everything is updated, but for some reason, our speaker, something's gone wrong here. So we are going to take a look at what's going on. We'll go back and make this level active. Turn, ooh, not that one. Let me figure out what's going on here. Sorry, one sec. I see. So I snapped to a different point than the point I would have wanted. Well, why aren't you letting me? A little confused about that, but one thing that we could have done instead, let's see. Just keep moving. All right, so for these two side speakers, I'm going to create another component. Let's see, new component. Have the parent be this one here. And we are going to name this one small speaker. And I'm going to put it under Fusion Demo, so it's all under that assembly. So you can have assemblies and assemblies, but I'm trying to keep everything in this form factor that we have going on right now along our tree. And create another sketch. And again, project the circle. Okay. Can go a little faster this time since we know sort of what we're after. To object, so it's front plane and new body. What have I done? I see. So this is where I accidentally started working on the main Fusion demo instead of the small speaker component. So the sketch is in the main tree instead of what we want to have in the small speaker. So I'm just going to go back a little bit and make this the active level so we can work here. Just making sure so you do that so it doesn't become a headache later down the line. And so we are going to project the circle, hit OK. And we are going to object, this front one, and hit OK. Same thing where we create a sketch. project this outside circle. Okay. Offset this to, I'm gonna do an 1/8 this time to kind of keep it in for proportions with the other side. Cool, finish that sketch. And extend to object. Turn off the base so I can reach the backside. Offset it an 1/8. 0.125. Negative. Cut it. All right. And do our chamfer. Except here we accidentally hit fillet. Two sides. It already knows that it wants that. So we're just gonna do as such. Hit OK. And I'm going to add our sphere back in. Create the sketch plane. Join, so we don't have to combine it, and OK. And now we have just about our speaker, and we can create a copy. But to do that, to have this speaker mirrored onto this side, introduce a new section, which is all the planes that we can create. Now, we created our initial sketch on a plane, but if you aren't able to create a sketch on a face that you see visible, you're able to create planes that aren't previously there. So in mid-plane, we are going to want to create our center plane. So we're going to select this face, and it's going to create a plane that we're going to be able to mirror off of. So we'll hit OK. Move copy, and what we want to do is select components. And we have a small speaker that we want to select. No. Sorry, that's a wrong one. Create mirror. So the mirror command is underneath here. And so again, components, this component, mirror plane is the one we just created, except it doesn't want to give it to us. So it's hiding within the base. So we're going to hide that. We're going to hit OK. So you can see when we do that, everything is mirrored right on over. So that pretty much concludes the Fusion 360 demo. If anyone does, there's still 15 minutes, but if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer, or sort of, if there's something you're after or you wanted to learn today, I'd be happy to go over it. Otherwise, I'm all set on my end.
Thank you very much. That was a great intro to the program.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That was awesome. That was very thorough. I appreciate it.
For sure. And yeah, if anyone does, if you guys end up working on a project in the future and need a hand, or if you're in an individual class, feel free to reach out anytime. This is my campus on jobs, so my job on campus. So absolutely.
Awesome. Any questions for James?
No, just thank you again.
Yeah, thank you again. It was a great tutorial.
If you could send your or actually Eli, if you could stick James' email in Slack, that would be great. So people can get in contact if they need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I hope everyone has a good night and a good week. Happy week 12.
Thanks for having me.